So Cartethyia signature weapon along with the full information of the stats that it provides have been officially released. So in today's video, we'll be diving a bit deeper into the pull value of this weapon by analyzing how it easily synergizes with Cartethyia to give you guys an idea of what you should expect, what type of echoes to farm if you're planning to pull for the weapon or not, other weapon options available for Cartethyia, and finally my recommendation if you should pull for this weapon or not based on several situations. If you're new here on the channel, the name is Senpai and I make videos that helps you improve and make better pull decisions in Withering Waves. So be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel because it helps me out tremendously. For the stats, she's rocking a 72.2% HP substat, which is pretty amazing due to the fact that her damage sources scales off HP. The first part of the passive buffs HP by 12% at rank 1, which is good on Cartethyia but absolutely worthless on anybody else in the game. The second passive will ignore 8% of the target defense after casting basic attacks or an intro skill for 15 seconds. This will allow you to deal decent damage when she's in the Cartethyia mode because you have to use basic attacks to place one of the sword shadows. And in the Fleur-de-Lis mode, you can easily activate the buff even without an intro skill because a decent portion of Fleur-de-Lis damage will most likely come from basic attacks since you can perform a lot of mid-air and ground combos. The third passive is where things get a little bit interesting. Cartethyia's damage will be amplified by 20% if the target has at least one arrow erosion stacks applied on them. Damage amplification effects increases your damage quite significantly, and the fact that this buff has no specific duration and Cartethyia's ability to constantly apply arrow erosion stacks on the enemy by herself when she's on field through basic attacks, resonance skill and intro skills means that those that have Chakona and those that don't will still have no downtime with the 20% damage amplification when using this weapon, specifically in single target situations. So maintaining and continuously refreshing all the buffs is not heavily dependent on Chakona based on what we've seen in the livestream and her official kit description. But right off the bat, we can tell that in terms of F2P value, this weapon is absolutely terrible. No sword resonator in the game currently skills off HP, and the low base attack makes it even worse for resonators that skills off attack. The third passive is restricted to team compositions that can utilize arrow erosion, which is either a Cartethyia team composition or a future arrow sword unit that has synergy with Chakona. The second passive is where you could probably gain some value in terms of synergy with other characters in the game, but that takes low priority among the more important aspects of any weapon you decide to pull for, including the basic attack, which should be higher at around 587, and a crit rate substat. On the flip side, some weapons have a high crit rate substat of around 36%, which makes up for their low base attack of 500, making it easy to literally slap on any character in the game. So this is by far the only weapon analysis video where I'll not be able to cover its synergy with other characters in the game. With that said, let's get into her weapon alternatives. The good news is that Cartethyia's weapon options are looking pretty good in case you cannot afford to pull for her signature weapon. My first recommendation will be Red Spring due to the crit rate substat, and most importantly, it provides up to 30% basic attack damage bonus for 14 seconds when the wielder does basic attack damage from the second part of the passive. From Cartethyia's official kit description, her ground and mid-air basic attacks does not have a specific scaling aside from the default basic attack damage, and all her damage sources increases based on the number of arrow erosion stacks on the enemy. So for the sake of future reference, if a character's kit description does not state that a specific ability scales up something else, the damage will scale up the default skill ability. A good example is Camellia's ephemeral skill, which scales off basic attack damage, but the ability itself can be activated by pressing your skill button, which does not do resonance skill damage. Another example is Chakona's Liberation, which scales off liberation damage because her kit description does not mention that it scales off any other types of damage besides the default damage scaling. Hence, Cartethyia can really make use of the 30% basic attack damage bonus from Red Spring at R1 since she does a lot of ground and mid-air combos which are done by spamming basic attacks. The second priority will be Emerald of Genesis due to the crit rate substat and the energy region that it provides. which can come in quite handy to ensure that she can use her liberation every rotation. Do keep in mind that the high base attack and the attack buff from the passive is useless on Cartethyia, but the weapon is easily accessible, and that's what matters from a free-to-play perspective. For those who will be running the Emerald of Genesis and Rest Spring, your Echo formation will be 4-3-3-1-1. The 4 costs will be crit damage, and both the 3 cost echoes will be HP % to compensate for the loss of HP from your weapon. For those wondering why we're not running any arrow damage bonus, do keep in mind that Cartethyia is not like other damage dealers that can easily obtain attack buffs from weapons, echoes, floor buffs from endgame content, and character sequences, so you're much better off running HP main stats. The Windward Pilgrimage set can provide up to 60% arrow damage bonus if we take into consideration the 10% additional arrow damage bonus that we'll most likely get from the Fleur-de-Lis Sword Echo when it's equipped on Cartethyia, just like Arrow Rover, which is quite decent, and having Chacona even makes it better because you'll be close to the 100% arrow damage bonus, which is recommended in terms of balancing your offensive stats. For your total crit rate when running the Emerald of Genesis or the Red Spring, you should be looking at around 72% total crit rate if we consider the fact that you can gain at least 30% crit rate on your substats, 10% crit rate that we get from the Windward Pilgrimage set, and finally the 8% that we'll most likely get on our skill tree. Do keep in mind that the crit rate on her skill tree speculation is based on the comparison with Brandt, who has crit rate on her skill tree and functions in a similar way as Cartethyia with separate scaling, which can be found on their signature weapon instead of crit rate or crit damage to make it easy to build crit stats on such characters. The second best weapon on the list of available free-to-play options is the Guardian Sword, which has a low base attack but provides up to 30% HP from substats, which is absolutely amazing. But do keep in mind that the 24% resonance skill damage bonus is quite useless since Cartethia's resonance skill that places a sword shadow is considered as basic attack damage. Those running this weapon or her signature weapon should be running the 4-4-1-1-1 Echo formation, which should do more damage compared to the 4-3-3-1-1 due to the crit damage focus that you can run alongside a crit rate focus Echo. The devs already confirmed that we'll be having the Nightmare Kelpie and the Fleur-de-Lis Sword Echo as the 4 cost echoes for the Windward Pilgrimage set, which makes the 4-4-1-1-1 formation possible. This echo formation should also get you a total of about 70% total crit rate if we consider the fact that you can easily get 30% crit rate from substats, 10% from Windward Pilgrimage set, and the 8% that you'll most likely gain from her skill tree as I explained earlier. That pretty much sums up her weapon alternatives and their respective builds, so you can start farming the right set for you as soon as version 2.4 goes live. Now here are my recommendations that can help you decide if you should pull for this weapon or not, depending on the type of account that you have. We've clearly established that this weapon is not free-to-play friendly, so if you pull for it, you do need to keep in mind that it'll be stuck on Cartethyia. This is not an issue for those that spends a decent amount of money in the game, but there are quite a few things that you need to consider before you pull as a free-to-play. There's no doubt that Cartethyia will be busted in terms of damage output if we consider this inherent passive right here that increases all her damage sources based on the number of arrow erosion stacks that has been applied on the enemy. This means that her DPS threshold will be much higher to clear any endgame content, even on free-to-play builds, so if you can barely afford to pull for her weapon in addition to a copy of her as a free-to-play, save your pulls and spend it on another character that could provide decent buffing or supportive utility in the future, or spend it on other weapon classes that you might not have on your account, which are much more versatile like Woodland Aria or the Stringmaster. Easily accessible weapons are usually a headache due to their lack of crit rate or crit damage substats for any damage dealer, but the 10% crit rate that we get from the Windward Pilgrimage set solves that issue to a certain degree, making Cartethyia easy to build. But as always, if you can afford it and you want her to do crazy amounts of damage, feel free to pull for it. That's all for my weapon pull value analysis for Cartethyia. Hope this video provided value to you, and if it did, leave a like and subscribe to support the channel because it's free and you can always change your mind. Be sure to also join our community Discord if you're having any issues with the game or you just want a place to chill or hang out. Link will be in the video description. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.